Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Today I'm sharing some cards I made using Love From Lizi's January 2020 card kit. It's a bright and cheerful cookie-themed kit called Hey Sweetie. It's a perfect way to jump into the new year. As I'm recording this voiceover, the kit is still available, but I will put an update in the description box when the kit sells out. The only way to guarantee to receive a kit is to sign up for the monthly subscriptions. So let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. The sketch I'm using is by Viva La Verve. This is their November 2016 sketch. The kit includes a ton of pattern paper. I believe there's 25 sheets of double-sided 6x6 papers. A lot of the papers have a very busy pattern, cookies and all kinds of sweets on the background, but there's also a nice mix of tone-on-tone and muted designs as well. So I'm going to match up several different pattern papers together, keeping that busiest paper in the background. This wide strip of blue paper has a look of fabric, kind of a burlap look. And instead of adding paper to layer that, I just use some of Love From Lizi's peel-off stickers. Then I'm layering all of that card front onto some cardstock. The kit does include cardstock, but I use so many layers that I'm going to add a lot of extra cardstock just from my craft room. Now for these two long banner strips, I use some pattern paper, both with a different type of sprinkle. And I'm just adding some scrap cardstock to that top portion and then the lower portion of each of those banners just to keep them nice and even on the card. And I'll do the same thing on this blue paper. And I just need a little tiny piece. That's all it takes just to keep it nice and level. I'll go ahead and adhere that to the card just using some ATG tape. Then once I have both of those banners in place fairly straight, I'll put some ATG on the back of my card front, adhere it to a card base. And then I do like to add just a small scrap of pattern paper on the inside of the card, and that's just for a little extra detail. Now for that circle element, I'm using one of the tags that's included in the kit. It even has a little string on there. I did go ahead and remove the string, and I'm just going to pop this up using some foam dimensional tape. And then I'm using one of the pre-tied bows that comes in the kit. I'm just going to put it right on top of that hole, just attaching it using some glue dots. And I noticed one of the little bow tails was flipped up slightly, so I just used another glue dot to hold that in place. And then I'll just finish off the card using the Nuvo glitter drops that are included in the kit. This is the Enchanting Pink color. And then I added just some more sprinkles around that sentiment. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 1. Now moving on to card number 2. This sketch is by MFT. This is number 467. Now for this orange rectangle piece, I actually cut it out of the center of the pattern paper that has kind of a frame of cookies and treats all around. And then I just cut 2 narrow strips of another pattern paper that has rows of different treats. I'm layering all of these pieces on some of the gold mirror specialty paper that's included in the kit as a really lovely shine. And now I'm going to use some of Love From Lizi's peel-offs to put some separation between those two pattern papers. And this has a gold edging with a little bit of white on the inside. I'll go ahead and attach my card front onto a card base. Now for the 4 circles on this sketch, I'm using one of the papers that has all of these cut aparts, and I just use a stitched circle die and cut out 4 different treat shapes. I'm just going to arrange those on my card, try to get them fairly even and straight before I add some ATG on the back. I would generally add a matted layer behind all of these circles, but I didn't want to cut them too small, and I think there was plenty of contrast between that background orange paper and then the paper on the background of all those treats. Now for a sentiment, I'm using the die that's included in the kit. It's Best Wishes, and I cut it out of some of the gold specialty paper. And if I'd planned this ahead of time, I would have actually cut it out of the background paper, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do for a sentiment until I actually got to this part. I did cut out 2 of them and layered them together, adhering them with some liquid adhesive just to add a little extra dimension and make it pop up slightly. And then I'm just going to attach it right in the center of those 4 circles. Now just to finish off the card, I'm just going to add a small banner in that upper left-hand corner out of that same gold mirror paper, and then just put a few of the sequins in that lower right-hand corner. I'm using just the pink color from the mix this time. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 2. For card number 3, I'm using a sketch by OWH. This is number 250. I have some pink tone-on-tone paper for the background, and then some of this busier paper with lots of different cookies and treats for the circle. And the circle is going to go off of the edge slightly. I just attach it onto the card, have it go over the edge, flip it over, and then use my scissors to trim that nice and even. And I want to do that before I added that paper onto the matted layer. So now I'm going to do a sentiment. I'm going to stamp Hey Sweetie. This is a stamp that's included in the kit. I'm going to layer this white piece of paper on some more of that coordinating cardstock. And this is also going to go flush on the right-hand side of the card. I'm just going to add that small piece of cardstock for that left-hand side that's hanging off of the circle. And then I decided I was going to add a couple strips of peel-offs on the very lower portion of the card. These are the straight peel-off designs. They're all the same width. I believe they're about 1/8 of an inch wide. And these are pink with a little glitter sealed in. I'm just putting 2 strips on the very bottom of the card. Now I'll go ahead and adhere this card panel onto a matted layer and then attach it onto a card base. And sometimes I like to leave that 1/8 of an inch of the card base showing. It just depends on what my background paper is. If more of the paper is white, then I'll tend to not have that extra white border showing. But for this one, there really isn't a lot of white, so I thought it really balanced out the card. Now I'm using the donut die that's included in the kit. I'm going to put it on that left-hand side next to the sentiment. And since it's going over that sentiment strip, I'm just going to add some thin foam squares on the top and lower portion. Keep it nice and even. And it's hard to see in the video, but the die has an embossed look with sort of the frosting and sprinkles on the donut. But I'm going to go and fill in that whole section using the Nouveau glitter drops that are included in the kit. So now it has this really pretty sparkly frosting. And then I'm going to add some extra dots right above and below that donut. And I felt like that top portion just seemed a little empty. So I pulled out this die from one of Love From Lizi's mega packs. Has a nice little garland row of flags. And my glue was clogging, so I was trying another glue, and this glue was dried up as well. So one more glue option, and it was working, so yay. It's always frustrating when your glue clogs while you're doing a video. So go ahead and attach this to that top portion of the card, and I think that balanced it out nicely. So there is my finished card, and of course my little strip of pattern paper on the inside. So that is card number 3. Now moving on to card number 4. This is a sketch by Sketch Saturday, number 563. And if you are interested in any of the sketches, including measurements, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post, and that link is in the description box below. For this card, I pulled out the embossing folder that's included in the kit. It has all these cupcakes and slices of cake. Use some of the tone-on-tone yellow paper for the background. And I'm just adding 2 strips of the peel-offs that are also included in the kit. This is the straight design again in a pretty yellow with that glitter sealed in. I'll go ahead and attach this piece onto some layered cardstock. And I did cut out that circle from the background of this cardstock just to save on some paper. Put my card front onto a card base, And overall, this is a fairly simple card, but I like the detail with the embossing folder in the background. I just have some pattern paper for that little flag, a little banner strip in the middle. Attach this circle. I have some white pearlescent paper, some of Love From Lizi specialty paper for that circle, and then I'm adding one of the stickers that's included in the kit, this beautiful cupcake in the yellow and pink. I stamped the sentiment on the same background paper, and I'm just going to pop it up using some thin foam squares. I didn't want to stamp it before I embossed, and I thought it looked really nice to have just that same yellow color, because I think adding the white would have been just a little too bright, and I really wanted that cupcake to be the main focus on this card. So just to finish off the card, I'm adding a banner in that upper right hand corner, and then I'm using some Nuvo yellow glitter drops for the frosting on the cupcake. It's the yellow bird color. And then just adding a few more drops with the other Nuvo drops, the enchanting pink, on that banner in the upper right hand corner. So there is my finished card, and that is card number 4. So jumping right into card number 5. This sketch is by Mojo Monday. This is number 508. I really like the variety of different colors that are included on the pattern papers. I still have my really pretty pink cards, and now I can make one that's, I think it's a little more on the masculine side. I have this green paper for the background with lots of different cookies and treats. Then I have a tone-on-tone orange paper for this little banner strip that's going across the middle. And then this one's a little harder to see, but it has a white with a little bit of orange print on it that has the burlap look. And I'm layering all of these pieces in some orange cardstock, and that's just from my craft room. I did put a small strip of extra cardstock on that upper and lower portion of the small rectangle, just to keep it even. And then for this thin strip that goes down the card, I'm using some green pearlescent paper, and this is one of Love From Lizi's add-ons. She always has a couple or at least one specialty paper add-on bundle. And I always get those because I love this specialty paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my card front onto a card base. And now for the image, I'm going to use one more of the dies that's included in the kit. This is a cupcake that has the sentiment "Make a Wish" on it. I decided to keep all of the little strips on the bottom portion of the cupcake. I guess it would be the little paper. So I kept those in place, and I'm just putting some score tape on the back side. And then I cut this out twice, once using some white pearlescent paper. And I'm just inlaying those letters into the cupcake. That way it's nice and even. And with all of those tiny pieces, it makes such a mess to use liquid adhesive. So I always find just having some double-sided tape on the back side makes it really easy. Now a couple of those pieces are super tiny, like the little dot to the eye. So I am using my jewel picker tool to help put that tiny little piece in place. So now I can just pull off the backing on all of that score tape and attach it right onto my card. And there was a couple little spots that it didn't have the score tape, so I am going to use some liquid adhesive just to make sure none of it comes off on the card. Put my little strip of pattern paper on the inside of the card. And then just finishing touch, I'm going to use a few sequins, put them in that upper right hand corner. And I selected just the iridescent colors. So it has a hint of green. Some of them have like a hint of pink to them, but I decided to just go with the green. Although I think it depends on how the light hits them as to what color they really are. And I felt like I needed just one more thing, so I pulled out one of the yellow pre-tied bows. Just put some glue dots on the back and adhered that right on my card next to the cupcake. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 5. So now moving on to card number 6. I'm not going to use a card sketch this time, and overall this is a very simple card. I love some of the pattern papers that have a little scene already on them, and it just looked perfect as a card almost by itself. So I'm just using my Mini Missy to stamp a sentiment, and I just love this sentiment. Just hoping to bake your day a little better. Isn't that fun? So I do want to add a little extra to this pattern paper. So I'm using some of the peel-off stickers. This is the thinnest width. It's the gold and white. And I'm just putting them right on almost the edge, just going slightly on the inside edge, putting them all around the card like a frame. So I just cut off those little ends and I'll just flip behind those pieces. And then I'll layer that on some of this orange cardstock. Tuck in any little stray ATG pieces. And then I'll adhere my card front onto a card base. And then to finish off this card, I'm just going to use some of Nuvo's glitter drops. And I'm actually going to use 3 different colors. So I'm putting them on the inside of some of the cookies. So I have the pink color again and the yellow color. I filled some of the cookies a little more than the others. I just thought it would add a nice sparkle to the card. So now I'll use some of the yellow and just do the same thing, add it to the tops of some of the cookies, sometimes in the center, like the frosting. Just trying to keep it fairly balanced on the card as to where I'm going to add that glitter. And then I felt like it needed just a little bit more. So I'm using the white Blizzard glitter color and just putting 1 drop on each side of the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 6. Now moving on to card number 7. The sketch is by Viva la Verve. This is their August 2017 sketch. The background paper is white with a rainbow of sprinkles kind of raining down from the top. And then I'm using some tone-on-tone pink paper for this strip that goes across the card and just adding some peel-offs. This is the pink glitter color. And I use 2 different widths. I have a wider width on the bottom and then a thinner piece on the top, just kind of matching with the sketch. And then I layered that on some pink cardstock. And since the background is more white this time, I am adding that 1/4 of an inch layer instead of the 1/8 of an inch layer. Now for this piece in the center, on the sketch it has 3 different size strips. And I decided to use just 1 solid pattern paper. And I'm putting a thin peel off between each of those rows, and that kind of gives it the look of like 4 different strips of paper. I layered that on some more of the pink cardstock. I'll just be adding some extra cardstock on that upper portion just to keep it nice and even on my card. Then I'll go ahead and attach that to the card front, trying to get it nice and straight. Then I'll adhere my card front onto a card base. And you can see this time I don't have any of the card base showing. Now for this circle element, I'm using one of the die cut punch outs that's included in the kit. This is a cookie that has the sentiment with love on it. And I'm just popping that up using some foam dimensional tape. And then just to finish off the card, I'm going to add some Nuvo drops in that lower left hand corner and a couple in that upper right hand corner, and then I decided to add a little onto the cookie right around the sentiment. I'll put my little piece of paper on the inside of the card, and there is my card all finished. And this is card number 7. Now moving on to card number 8. The sketch is by Freshly Made Sketches. This is number 416. And this is another fairly quick and simple card, but it does have a lot of layers. So the main color I'm layering all of these pieces is in some silver specialty paper. This is the sheet that's included in the kit. I have the background paper as some blue tone-on-tone, and then I'm adding some yellow paper that just has that sprinkling of cookies in the background. Layered that on some yellow cardstock. And then the main paper has all of those fun cookies in a little larger shape than some of the other patterns. And I layered that piece on that silver mirror paper. I stamped the sentiment, a cookie card for my kooky friend. Did that in white and just put that small piece of foam dimension on the right hand side of the sentiment just so it didn't droop down. Add a silver banner in that upper left hand corner. And my card is all finished. Really simple card. So now moving on to card number 9, which ended up to actually be 2 cards, although I'm only going to show one of the cards being made. Lizi included 2 sheets of tissue paper in the kit this month. So I'm using one of them, and this is really thin. It's just like tissue paper. It has a nice design on it, but it tears very easily, and it's also very see-through, so any adhesive you're going to put on there, you're going to see it. So I'm putting some score tape on the back side. I lined it up with this blue frame that's going to be on top of it, so it's going to cover up all of that adhesive, and I just laid it straight onto my card base. So now you can see when I attach that frame, you're not going to see any of that yellow color from the score tape. So this is going to be a shaker card. So I'm going to add my acetate on the back side of this blue frame. I'm going to build my little shaker window. So I have my foam dimensional tape, cut a long strip, fold it in half. That way I don't have to do 2 pieces later. You can do it all in one shot. I'll just cut some strips to go around this frame. And I just make sure to have them nice and snug against each other. That way none of the sequins or shaker toppings are going to escape. I'm just working on those 2 shorter sides. And on this final one, my piece was just a slightly bit too short, but no worries. I just peeled up the other edge of the foam piece and just kind of pushed them together. So I'm using some anti-static powder, just running it along the inside edge, just trying to make it so the sequins won't stick to it very much. I'm going to add a bunch of sequins, and this is where I realized I should have done it the other way around. I should have put the sequins on the pattern paper, and then I could have lined up the window much easier. And so I ended up dumping out the sequins to do exactly that. Of course, there's static everywhere. There's sequins that have jumped all over the place. And then I realized I put that frame on crooked. And this bothers me so much, but there's no way I could correct it. It would rip the card, so I decided I'm just going to keep going. I went and stamped the sentiment, "You're one smart cookie." I'm going to layer this in this is actually some of the tone-on-tone pattern paper. Just going to attach that right onto that acetate, and then I'm going to use another one of the stickers. But they're very thin, so I wanted to add a little bit of stability, so I just cut out a white circle die out of some cardstock, and then I put the sticker directly on top. Use some liquid adhesive to add to the card. So that crooked frame is still bothering me, so I'm trying to figure out a way to make it not look quite as obvious. So I'm just going to put a little bow in that upper right hand corner. I decided, well, that's as good as it's going to get. And I did make a second card. The other one is not a shaker card, and I just put a sprinkling of the Nuvo glitter drops all around those cookies. So now moving on to card number 11. This is a sketch from MFT. It's number 466. I used some white pearlescent paper for the background, and then I have this tone-on-tone green paper for the square on the card. And just to add a little bit of sparkle, I'm using some of the clear iridescent peel-offs, putting them right to the edge of the paper, and then just using an X-Acto knife and kind of mitering them in the corner. That way they have a nice and clean edge to them. And I'll layer this piece onto some green cardstock, and this is the cardstock that is included in the kit. Before I adhere that in place, I want to use one of the washi tapes that's included, and I love this washi tape. It has a bunch of different round cookies, and I like how it's not straight. It has sort of a scalloped edge to go around each of those cookies. And I just put one strip of it on the lower portion of the card and just tucked the ends around on the inside. Layer that paper on some more of this green cardstock. Then I'll add this square right above that piece. So you can see I'm not following all of these sketches exactly. I like them for some inspiration. Sometimes I will follow them exact, but sometimes they're just a starting point. Now for the sentiment, I'm using another one of those die cut punch outs, and I just layered it on some white pearlescent paper, cut out a scallop circle. And now I'm going to use just a real thin piece of green cardstock, just putting it on that upper portion. And then just to finish off the card, I'm going to add one of the pink bows. I'm going to put it in that upper right hand corner, adhere it with some glue dots, and there is my finished card. So now moving on to my 12th and final card using this kit. I'm not using a card sketch this time. So the stamp set included has all of these fun cookie images, and I don't color very often, but I really wanted to find a way to still use those cookies. So I'm going to do some heat embossing with them. So I have some blue cardstock that's included in the kit, treated the whole paper with some anti-static powder. And now just using some Versamark ink, I'm going to stamp an assortment of cookies all over this background. I'll have some of them going off of the paper, making sure to do the largest first and then kind of working the size down. That way I can fill in all those little gaps with the smallest cookie. So now I'm going to use the Love From Lizi Golden Crown embossing powder. This is one of my favorite embossing powders. Just wiping away any of those stray pieces. This is a full panel to heat emboss, so it's going to take a little while, so I did speed this up quite a bit. And my cord kept getting caught on, I'm not sure what it was getting caught on, but it kept pulling on me, so sorry when I went off screen just slightly once in a while. So I do like to heat emboss it from the back, that way I don't blow all of those extra pieces all around, and then once I get most of it set, I'll move around to the front to make sure I get every last bit melted. And since I did heat emboss this whole panel, it does warp the paper slightly. So I'm going to use some score tape, just cover the whole back of the card before I adhere it onto this cardstock. And I'm layering it on the gold mirror paper. And there was one of the cookies I didn't get a very solid image, and it bothered me, so I was trying to figure out a way to cover that up. So I decided that's where I'm going to place my sentiment. I just cut this strip of paper from one of the tone-on-tone pattern papers. I'm just going to lay that right along the bottom of the card, covering up the little missed spot of embossing powder. I'm just going to add a few of Love From Lizi's peel-offs on the top and bottom of this sentiment strip. And if I had planned ahead, I would have already stamped the sentiment on there. But just to make sure I was still going to get a good impression, I decided to pull out my Mini Misty, grab the sentiment. I'm using a cookie card for my kooky friend. I think that's a fun sentiment. I was going to stamp it using some black ink. And I think if I hadn't used the Mini Misty, I probably wouldn't have got a very good impression because it still is going over those slight bumps from the embossing powder. So I'll adhere my card front onto a card base. And then the kit includes 4 clothespins with these little chipboard images. And I decided I didn't need the clothespin this time. It was a little bulky. So I just ripped off that chipboard piece and attached it to my card. And then just a few finishing touches. I cut out a small banner using that same yellow tone-on-tone pattern paper. Put it in the upper right-hand corner. I considered adding one of the bows, but I didn't like the look, so instead I just put a couple drops of Nuvo drops on there. And then also some Nuvo glitter drops on the heart of that cookie. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 12. So here's just a quick recap of the 12 cards I made using Love From Lizi's January 2020 card kit. This kit is so bright and cheerful, perfect if you're having a gloomy winter. It's been raining like crazy here in Western Washington. This kit is still available as I'm recording the voiceover, and I will provide links in the description box below if you are interested in purchasing this kit or any of the add-ons. Now here's everything that I have left over from the kit. So I still have some cardstock. There's a full sheet of yellow and then at least half sheet of some of the other colors. I still have quite a bit of the specialty cardstock. I have a ton of pattern paper left over. Ended up with, I think, 7 full sheets of 6x6 paper. Still have most of the die cuts, several of the stickers. I still have 3 of those tags. And then 3 of the little clothespins with that chipboard on them. I didn't use one of the tissue paper, but I still have a lot of the other. There are all of the washi tape rolls. Of course, the Nuvo drops. And then there are the peel-offs for the kit this month, the stamp set. There's also the embossing folder. And then lots of those bows. I think the kit came with at least 20 of them. And then there are the dies that are included. And then I also have some more of the sequins that I forgot to show. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.